All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. Tonight, sitting across from me, I got André Trahan. He is a professional musician based in Austin, Texas. Armed with a graduate degree in the art, his musical journey encompasses a rich background in music education and chamber singing. He has performed with ensembles across the U.S., including Coro Vocati in Atlanta, Georgia, RedShift in Baton Rouge, Texas Early Music Project here in Austin, Texas, among others. His repertoire boasts a diverse range of performances featuring notable work like Joby Talbot's Path of Miracles, Craig Hella Johnson's Resonant Considering Matthew Shepard, Kile Smith's Uplifting the Consolation of Apollo, and Gabriel Jackson's Ethereal To the Field of Stars. Beyond being committed to fostering a supportive community, he actively champions the growth of fellow musicians and music educators. Andre's commitment to musical excellence and community engagement creates an inspiring narrative in the world of music. And one thing I have never suggested people go do in the beginning of an episode is go to his YouTube page and pick any one or two videos and just give it a listen real quick. I listened to all of them last night.
Oh, you did?
All of them.
Nice.
And it was all beautiful. It was great. You're very talented. And I feel like I'm going into this with something the audience should also have. So go listen so you know who I'm talking with tonight, and then come back and hit play. Andre, welcome to your episode of The Sit Back.
Thanks for having me.
We're back.
We are back.
So welcome to your episode of The Sit Back. Thank you so much for being here. We made it through the intro.
There we go. Yeah. It's the hardest part is over.
The hardest part is over. I have a question for you.
Yes.
I have a lot of questions for you. I have 4 pages here.
That's a lot of questions.
Yeah, but we probably will only answer like 2 or 3 of them. The last guest, I literally asked one. I set the paper down as he was talking and never picked it up again. So
it just goes.
It just goes.
Yep.
Here's a question though that I like to ask everyone. Are you happy?
Oh, that is a really good question. And the answer is yes. Through effort and through like realizing that I'm the one who has to answer that question, I make it a point to make sure that I'm happy. And like, it doesn't mean that you're always like riding a like happy wave, but I think it's like, the sum of all things in your life. You want to have that, positive trajectory.
Yeah. I noticed after going through your Instagram, you've been around a little bit, which is cool. You've been in New England. You've been to Nashville, Tennessee. You've been to Palm Springs. You've been in Houston. As I said in your intro, you've been to Atlanta and whatnot.
Yeah.
Taking the performances aside, let's say you went to these places for a performance or something. Is there any part of the U.S. where you just you're in love with it, either because of the people, the weather, you have family there, just any notable places in the U.S.?
Oh, yeah. For sure, where, I'm from, Southwest Louisiana, I'm a Cajun, so we're from there, and we are very, tight-knit and have a really, unique sense of our culture and who we are. So miss my family all the time, my hometown, just, how people are in their mannerisms and how they talk. You can go to the grocery store and you'll run into somebody that knows your mom, and then you get talking and stuff like that. So I definitely miss just the connection that I have with the place. And it's not necessarily a physical thing, but it's more of like an emotional, when you're home. So that's where I kind of find my brain going to a lot.
You said you're a what?
Cajun. Yes. So in Louisiana, there are, 2 big groups of people, Cajuns, and then there'll also be Creoles. So where I'm from, Southwest Louisiana, is more Cajun. So came from Nova Scotia back in 1700s. Were deported from there and then landed in South Louisiana, and then, kind of spread through there. So, the French language is a huge part of our culture and who we are. So we have an immersion program that we can go through. So starting in kindergarten, I started, school in French mostly, and then we had, obviously English classes, but all of my other subjects were in French, and, just went on through there.
So you were in southern Louisiana, and they were, and it was in the immersion program was mostly French.
Yeah.
And that's how you became bilingual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it because there's so many Cajuns and Creoles there, and that's why they have these immersion programs?
Yeah. So up until around the 1950s, most people in that area only, spoke French as a first language, and didn't speak English, as much. So my grandparents' first language is French, and then around the 1950s, there was a big discouragement of speaking French. So when my parents were in school, if anyone tried to speak French, they would be like raked over the knuckles, with a ruler, and people were more embarrassed because of who they were and the language they spoke. So we almost lost an entire culture in the United States because of this fear and this sort of wanting to become a certain idea of what an American is. And then since then have come to realize that it's actually an asset to have all of these differences and these unique cultural characteristics that you take with you. So yeah, we're still going, and thankfully not all has been lost yet.
What's is in any traditions that you carry with you from Nova Scotia, that your family holidays you celebrate, foods that you eat or cook?
So many. So obviously, yeah, from Nova Scotia, from France, a lot of French cuisine and cooking. Like I said, with the Creole and Cajun kind of differences, you'll get a little bit of differences in how we prepare dishes. So like if we're making a gumbo and you're Cajun from, the prairie or, along the bayou or something like that, you're going to probably make a flour-based roux. It's going to be a little bit thicker, and have different kind of things inside of it. So like more chicken, more sausage. But if you're Creole, more from the city, like New Orleans area, it's going to be more of a tomato-based gumbo. It's a little bit lighter, more soupy, and probably use a little bit more seafood and things like that. Although there's some trade-offs. So the food is definitely a really big part of who we are. Like when you're eating, you're always talking about what you're going to eat next, and stuff like that. So gumbo, red beans and rice and sausage, catfish, crawfish. I love a good crawfish boil all the time. I really miss that over here. Some etouffee, all that good stuff.
Do you know how to make a crawfish boil?
I have never soloed that before. It's always like been my dad, or like you go to a party and like, everyone's, cooking and stuff. But basically what you do is you take your crawfish, you wash it, you season everything, dump it in there, let them cook, dump it on the table with some corn and some potatoes and all that stuff. And then you go to town. It's a lot of work to eat crawfish. I don't know if have you ever been to a crawfish boil?
So no, but
Yeah.
there is a restaurant in my hometown in Sacramento that's a seafood restaurant, and they do not serve you utensils. So you order, you tell them you want your bag filled with potatoes and corn, and I think I did have crawfish in mine because I do like shrimp.
Yeah.
And ignorant me, I'm like, well, crawfish is sort of like a shrimp, right? So I just like throw some crawfish in there, and then I forget the final fish. I think it was either crab or lobster. But then they bring out a bag, and the table's covered in paper.
Yes.
And they just set the bag right in the middle of the table, and you rip it open, and everything just comes piling out.
Like exact same thing, except it's like a little bit smaller with the crawfish, and so you have to work a little bit more. But I love a good like crab boil. I had some friends that were from New England somewhere, and they got these delicious crabs, and then you just dip them in the butter and it's so good. Yeah, I love it.
It's for Thanksgiving. Me and my buddy, shout out Tommy Barvik and his girlfriend Emma, we decided not to go home because we were all going home for Christmas, and so we spent Thanksgiving together. And I wanted, instead of like cooking them a traditional dinner, I was like, you know what, we're gonna have crab. And we got down on some crab. It was so good.
Good.
We made a garlic butter sauce, which was throw butter and garlic into a bowl and throw it in the microwave.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's allowed to be called a sauce.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. If you dip it, it's a sauce.
Yep. And then we found out that day that Thad likes crab.
Really?
Isn't that weird?
How much did he have?
Not that much.
Okay.
Because it was for us.
For sure.
And it wasn't. I'm sure stores like uptick the price of crab a little bit. So Tom asked him if he could give him a bite just to see what happened.
Yeah.
And I said, sure. So he gave him like a little, enough to taste it and to like have something to chew on. And little boy started wagging his tail and asked for more. So we gave him a little bit more. And so then a couple weeks later, I was eating shrimp. I gave him a jumbo shrimp to see what he would do with it. He demolished it. He's a seafood dog.
Maybe he's a Cajun.
Maybe. Well, if you ever want to get together for a crawfish boil, I like to think I'm decent in the kitchen, so I could help. I could definitely help.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that sounds amazing.
It's all about the seasoning, honestly. You know, you have to make sure you can't just like put it on afterwards because it won't soak into the meat. So you have to make sure it's early enough and then, you know, getting everywhere. And
Yeah.
It's good to go.
Have you been to France?
I have not been to France yet, and I really, really want to go. Like with music and going through music school and everything, we would tour internationally quite a bit. So I've been to, you know, Italy, the UK, Eastern Europe, but somehow have like skipped around. So like I can, you know, I'm bilingual and I haven't been able to use my French really out, you know, anywhere else. So one day we'll get there.
When you're here, if you're ever in like an HEB or somewhere, do you ever just try speaking in French, like greeting them in French, just to see if maybe they'll, you know, say something back in French?
I've not tried that. Although one time it was a different grocery store, but the lady who was checking everybody out, I could tell like she was French because of her name tag and her accent, and so we just like started talking in French, and that's always like a really nice surprise whenever I can actually, you know, speak with someone, and it can tell it like makes them happy too.
Dude, if I was doing podcasting full time and I didn't have this darn day job keeping me busy, I would have taken some French lessons to at least be able to say like hello and how are you, just to have been able to give you that little gift as you walk through the door.
So okay, hello, bonjour,
bonjour.
Yeah, good. That was good. And then how are you? We'll do that one. Comment ça va?
Comment ça va?
Comment
ça
va?
Va.
Comment ça va?
Comment ça va?
There it is.
There it is.
Nice.
How about are you happy?
Oh, est-ce que vous êtes content?
Okay. I'm cutting it off there.
So we're getting to the deep end.
So yesterday when I always try to practice the intro just 2 or 3 times so I fumble over it as little as possible. Yeah. And I was asking Thad, I was like, do you think his last name's Trahan? I knew it wasn't. I was like there's no way we're pronouncing this thing phonetically. There's no way.
No, you know, but honestly I've heard it every single possible way that you can probably pronounce that last name, and so I am used to it, and I am okay if someone says Trahan or Trahan or something like that. So.
What's the worst pronunciation you've heard? Do you remember?
I get a lot of Trahans, and it just sounds it's like makes my ear bleed. Yeah, but you know that's okay.
Before we get into the questions, how's the drink?
It's very good. The ratio of, you know, gin in there is because not a lot of people like gin, or you know some people don't, because it's kind of like sprucey or like, you know. It tastes a little bit like Christmas, but I like it.
It tastes. So I have a confession to make. I've never had a gin and tonic.
What?
It's really it's really quite good.
Do you drink gin?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I haven't bought gin since I've been in Austin, and I've been in Austin 13 months.
Well,
yikes.
There you have it.
But no, it's good. I don't not like gin. I'm just such a whiskey, Scotch, all those browns, you know, they're so good, man.
Yeah, there's so much like layers to all of the flavors, and you can just sip and get all that, and
it's really good. I'm pleasantly surprised. And part of my bar, for lack of better terms, too, is I keep stuff that I know people like. So I have like Tommy's favorite bottle of mezcal and you know, so nice. Yeah. But now I have a bottle of gin and I have some tonic. So assuming we don't drink it all, I will be enjoying this over the next couple of weeks.
Good. Yeah.
Yes.
That's good.
So let's dive into it. You grew up Southern Louisiana. What was the specific town called?
Lafayette.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard of it.
Yeah.
What are you, siblings?
I have 2 sisters. Yeah. They are both still in Louisiana with my mom and dad. So I try to go home as much as I can.
Where do you fall? Who's the oldest?
I'm the youngest, so I'm the baby. Got away with a lot. Definitely, probably a little bit more spoiled than my sisters, and they would say that readily. But no, I love them. Thankfully, because I know not everyone has this experience, but in grad school, I lived with my middle sister, and so we were roommates, and we just got to, you know, develop a closer relationship with each other. And then my oldest sister, we've gotten to know each other like on a different, you know, level as we've gotten older, which has been really, really nice.
That's awesome. Yeah. What were family dynamics like growing up?
Oh, family dynamics. I'd say, you know, pretty normal.
Y'all got along for the most part.
Oh, we fought. Don't worry. Like
Okay.
it was like who has the remote, all of the normal like sibling rivalry stuff. But I'm like 3.5 and 4 years behind my sisters, so they kind of like took care of me, a little bit more, and sort of had that protective older sister thing, which I'm very thankful for because I was definitely a nerd and didn't always fit in, so it was nice to have them tell me like you're not going to go to school like that, or you're not wearing that, or stuff like that. So yeah, they're definitely thankful for them.
That's cool that they had your back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Someone was telling me there's the like behind closed doors is like World War III, and if anyone saw that, they would think like they all hate each other.
Yeah.
But then as soon as they left that front door and they were out in the world, they had each other's backs like instantly.
Oh, for sure.
Like that's sort of that is very different than how I grew up, but like it's a cool perspective. I think it's cool that you guys had like if someone threatened one of you guys, that the other two would be like, no, you didn't.
Yeah,
like, you have to take on all three of us.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
You made a post on your Instagram, fast forwarding to high school, that you had minimal confidence, and that if you could go back and speak to Bebe Andre, you would tell him that it's all going to be okay. Do you remember that post?
I vaguely remember that post. Yes.
And you had a picture of you now. I think you were in your CrossFit gym.
Yeah, I remember
and
this.
And then
Yeah,
if you scroll over, there's a picture of you. I think you had blonde hair at the time.
Yeah, my hair was light. Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you think you had minimal confidence in high school?
Oh my goodness. So, everyone deals with their baggage and their past and who they are. But for me, I've always felt like an outsider pretty much in every environment. I was pretty skinny. I was in the closet, at the time since growing up. And I definitely really cared about what other people thought. And whenever I didn't fit in, that really, I think, just like kind of tore me down. And, people read that lack of confidence, and I think that made even more, bullying and things like that just sort of like compile and make it worse. And then I just didn't really have a sense that I could really have a knowledge of what I wanted in life. And I didn't realize that probably until, a few years ago, where, now I'm actually asking myself the tough questions, like, what do you want out of this? Who do you want to be? How do you want people to see you, and all of those things. So it's just the difference. And I think everyone goes through that kind of growing up, and you learn more about yourself and you develop more skills and more things. But it was a lot of positive things in my younger life, but definitely a lot of things that were, not so positive that I've had to kind of work through and, develop skills and work past those things. Yeah.
Did you? So yes, I agree with you. I think now that I've talked to 50 plus people on this podcast, that even from the other perspective, like hearing from the bullies, and the people that just straight up said like, no, I was the asshole in high school, and I'm ashamed to say that, but I was bullying them because that was how I was dealing with not having any idea who I was. And so I think what teenager doesn't, especially you're raised one way and you go through elementary school, and then I really feel like in high school specifically, we all start just asking ourselves like, what is going on? At least from the people I've talked to so far. So
no, everyone deals with so much fear, and I think we just all process it differently. And if someone's going through shit at home, there's only so many outlets you have to try and like reconcile that in your mind. And some people go one route and some people go another route. And I think we're just collectively all coping with a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing to sort of work through because fear is one of those like primal sort of instinctual emotions that we all carry with us, and it can be overpowering and overwhelming. And if you don't have the skills to deal with that, then it's gonna manifest itself in one way or another.
Yeah. You said that you were not out of the closet. Did you know that you were in the closet?
That's so. I've thought about it a lot, and sort of like that process. Like I was saying, I always felt like an outsider, so I thought this was just one more thing that I wasn't aligning with everybody else on, and so I thought, like, maybe I just don't want to date, period, and I'm not like interested in anybody, period. So I didn't give myself the sort of like green light to be attracted to guys. I think I remember when I was really little, like elementary, middle school, I would just like be in bed crying myself to sleep because I knew something was different and I didn't want to go through that, and I didn't want like that, you know, burden or whatever to be on me. And so I just, talking about fear and dealing with fear, like that's how I dealt with it. And I sort of wrote this narrative of myself that I was bad and different because I wasn't like everybody else and I didn't see myself in other people. So yeah, just it's really interesting thinking about it and looking back and seeing where I am now and how I really think I never thought that I could sort of overcome that and like grow out of that and learn to deal with that and be myself. So yeah.
I'm sorry that you were crying yourself to sleep every night.
It happens. Look,
it
even
does.
today, I'm still crying myself to sleep for other reasons. That's okay.
A lifelong journey of tears
Yes,
and bed.
there were so many tears.
Yeah. Was religion part of your household? Were you guys raised Christian? Nothing at all? What was sort of going on in that
Yeah.
department?
So talking about Cajuns, most Cajuns religion is a huge part of the culture as well, and so Catholic, you know, Roman Catholic. You know, on every street corner there's a church, and that was also a big part of my life. I remember some of my earliest memories going to visit my grandmother. She lived out in the country, and so Sunday mornings, you know, we would go to church, and I just have these super vivid memories of walking in with her into the dark church and just smelling the incense, and it just being this sort of like almost other world. Yeah, we always, you know, went to church together, you know, as a family and stuff. You know, but since then, sort of changing those things, you know, me and my sisters sort of, you know, taking on a different path than our parents. But still, I think holding a lot of those core things that we, you know, had as a family together, you know, with faith, taking those things with us that we knew were a really important part of our lives. But, you know, maybe taking a step back from those things that we knew weren't going to, you know, go with us into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crying in bed, really. Oh, I was going to ask what, in
Yeah,
that part
it's so sad so far.
No, it's not sad. It's not sad because I mean it's going to be a very happy ending.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? What was there any gay kids at your school or bi or like was there much of an LGBT community or
You know what? I think I was so scared to look. I was so scared to see, you know, because of what I sort of felt in myself. There was like a Gay Straight Alliance Club and things like that, and some more of the out kids were a part of that. But then I sort of, and like I don't, you know, I just feel kind of terrible about myself. But everyone else, I feel, viewed them a certain way, and I just like stepped right in line and took on that sort of like collective view of what that was. And I wish that I had more self-confidence or more representation that I could have known then, like, hey, it's okay, like you can be yourself and be more open about this. But unfortunately that just, you know, wasn't in the cards for me at the time.
Yeah, I was in a similar boat where I grew up in a school of well, I was being homeschooled for the majority of my middle school and elementary school, but then my 8th grade year, my parents thought it would be a good idea if me and my brother were put into a quote unquote normal school, not homeschooled, so that we could start making more friends outside of just our church, and so that we could just be like socialized, for lack of a better term. And I, similar to what you were saying about just knowing I was different, and also finding men attractive, but being raised in a home where that's wrong.
Yeah.
There's one gay guy on our campus, and his name was Simon, and he was just he's very flamboyant and acted very differently. And so one of my questions was like, oh, is that me? Do I have to change how I talk if I'm gay, and how I walk? And do you have to wear, different kind of clothes? And to this day, I'm wearing these khakis because I find them comfortable and they were a good price. That's why I'm wearing what I'm wearing, And so I've always just sort of done, actually, let me rephrase that. It took me a while to just do what I want to do because I want to do it, and not because this is what society or culture or family or friends say you quote unquote should do. And that was not a quick lesson learned.
Look, at a certain point, I think we all learn, like, this is my story and I'm writing it, it's that, and that's the way it's got to be. A couple of things, one, my parents, so great, and I'm so thankful to have them in my life and all the things that they have done. And, there never was any sort of, I think we often don't have the tools that we need at the time that we need them. But we would still watch, shows like Will and Grace and all those other things. So it was so weird because like, it wasn't explicitly talked about, but like we all were like, knew that this was okay. I never had any doubts that my parents wouldn't love me or wouldn't, would, disown me or anything like that. They were always and have always been super supportive. But it just wasn't as much, there's not as much awareness as I have now, back then of what, being gay, I had no idea what that was and like what that meant, just because it's not something that was talked about even when I was growing up, which was, like late 90s, early 2000s. So even in this, short time since then, we've come such a long way. And then, you're talking about sort of like viewing that person, walking around your school and sort of like acting a certain way. Like I had two older sisters, and so I spoke a certain way. I sort of mimicked, how they were talking, and, had certain mannerisms and all of these things. And people were so, quick and hard to like shut that down in me. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of the bullying, came from, was because I was, either being goofy or being, silly or something like that, or speaking a certain way, and just like the policing that went on by other guys and, even girls to be like, that's not okay and you need to stop that. Like looking back on it and thinking of all the other people that have had to deal with this too, you just have to stop and ask yourself, like, who would I have been if I didn't have that sort of pressure and, and sometimes violent pressure, to conform and act a certain way. But then you can't really think about that because it's not what happened, and what happened did happen. And so you have to be okay with that and say, that happened. Who am I going to be going forward? And what is the trajectory going to be for me now? Which is so much more healthy and, beneficial than, dwelling in the past and being angry and resentful and all those other things, because it really does me no justice.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to touch on some of the things you just said, but in like an hour,
sure.
Towards the end of the episode, because I have some we're going to talk about music, we're going to talk about fitness, but I think one of the most impactful things that we're going to take away from this episode is talking about mindset a little bit. And so I wanted to sort of save the best for last, so to speak. Sure. So I'm going to sort of archive what you just said and just tell you that, so I'm not just ignoring you and moving on. Yeah. So fast forward to senior year. You graduate high school, and from what I could tell, your life is pretty much music right now, right? Whether it's singing or playing or conducting, you're fully integrated into music for the most part?
For the most part. So I went to arts academies in middle school, in high school. And so, we chose electives, and I was definitely doing a lot of music, even though my family wasn't that much, into it as I was becoming. But my favorite class was like anatomy and physiology. And that's when I got the best grades, was in my biology and science classes. And so actually I started undergrad, as a pre-med biology major, and kept that up until my junior year. So I was double majoring in music and science through then. And it still is a huge passion of mine. And I think there's a lot of like connection in between what I do as a musician and then what I was doing, in my biology labs and stuff like that. So yeah, it wasn't always music, and there's still like a lot of imposter syndrome with me about like I don't feel like truly part of the musician club because so many great musicians have just always been super, deep into it and just knew in the core of themselves that they were a musician, because you have to devote so much time to practicing and to honing your craft. People don't see the just mountain of work that has to go into, a short performance. But that wasn't something I thought I was. Even coming out of graduate school, I didn't really consider myself like a musician for one reason or another. And that's a huge lesson, I think, in the labels that we make for ourselves. And some labels can be written and put on you by others, and then some you write yourself and you can slap on you, and you can wear more than one label, and you can take off labels that others have put on you. It's dynamic, and you own that. So
Yeah. I was not talking with someone. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how the host of the podcast is an entrepreneur who owns several of his own businesses, and he was talking about just the dynamics of like going to networking events throughout the city and whatnot. And when you meet someone and they have no idea who they are, hey, I'm David, I'm Andre, and the first question out of their mouth seems to be, what do you do? Well, I'm a recruiter. But that, like, if my job listens to this, which I don't think they do, I don't really, it's a paycheck. It's like you're saying this thing, like to your point, this label when like the person that is David and the person that is Andre is so much more than I'm a grad student, I'm a recruiter, I'm an architect, an engineer, a singer, whatever the thing is. Yeah. So I've been reframing that. I'm actually going to a networking event this Saturday, which is why I'm wearing the Human Rights Campaign shirt. They're
Love it.
Having a dinner in Austin. Are you going by chance?
No, I'm not, but I kind of want to now.
I'll report back if you end up not going. If you do go, let's sit together, because I'm not going to know anybody there.
Okay.
So we can talk for a few minutes, have our first drink together, and then we'll head out to the masses and see who else attends. But where was I going with that? Yeah, labels are such an interesting thing, because even like with your intro, I think I summed up, a pretty good image of who you are. But even in the last 34 minutes, we've already seen there's even so much more behind that to share. But with that being said, so you finished school. Oh, I was going to ask you. You said I don't count myself in the musician club. Do you count yourself as part of the singers club?
Oh my goodness. So my professional background is as a conductor, a choral conductor, which means that I work mostly with voices and, large groups of voices. But I think that to be a good conductor, you have to be a good, practitioner and performer yourself to be able to, communicate and do your job well. So more and more, I'm like riding that label of singer to like be ready to put that on myself. I'm still, taking coachings, and so many great singers do, because you just have to keep it up. You have to have someone else listening to you to, critique and to give you, things to look at. But it's I feel like in the world of music, these labels that we're talking about, they're so like, they're put on these pedestals, and they're so sacred and cherished. And I'm like, well, maybe I can just own that without it having to be so like singer with a capital S,
Yeah.
So, I mean, very much so. Yes, I do identify as a singer and in that sort of group. But there's so many different colors in that group. It's really interesting to see all of the different kind of people that are part of that, And you were talking about people, asking you, what do you do? And that's the question that like everyone asks. And I like panic because there's so much I have to explain to someone, where I say like I'm a conductor, and they're like, oh, do you drive trains, or like something like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Or like, do you work with metal and like wires? And I'm like, no, like musician.
I guess you could say choral conductor.
But then they're like, "Oh, do you work like under the ocean, like with coral reefs?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." But I'm trying to get in the habit more of is not asking people, "What do you do?" but tell me about yourself. So it gives people more of like, an open door to answer that in a different way. Because a lot of people don't want to talk about their job when they're not at work or have themselves be defined by what they do, even if they love what they do,
Yeah, I'm going to have to use that this Saturday. Tell me about yourself.
See how it goes.
I'm definitely, I don't think, I was even thinking about not even bringing up the recruiter thing at all because it is so much a paycheck and just being like, I'm a local podcaster. And maybe add a little bit more to that.
Yeah.
Add the tagline for the pod. It's just one sentence. It's very quick. But yeah, that's funny. I guess you could say I'm a singer, performer, and conductor.
Look,
and then they'll be like, that's a lot to be doing while you're driving trains all over the country.
Yeah, no, right.
Like,
just singing as you're driving the train.
Yeah. Well, that's. I hope you get less nervous with that question. You should work on it.
I should.
How am I going to answer that? Come to this dinner on Saturday and you can practice it about 200 times.
That'll get it really down pat.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
So what sort of happens after you graduate? And then talk to me a little bit generically. Just string the timeline for me together a little bit about what sort of happens for you. Did you just dive headfirst into the world of music, or?
So like I said, like I was majoring in biology when I first got to my undergrad. I was swimming. I was still doing that because I was a competitive swimmer all my life. And I was also part of a couple of choirs on campus. And my director would often pull me into his office, and we'd just be talking. He's like, "So, Andre, when are you gonna major in music?" And I think eventually he just wore me down, and then I added, music, and I have been taking a couple of like courses, intro to music history, stuff like that, and was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be the person that was like waving their arms and like in front of everyone else, just because I felt like, I don't know, there was such like a kinetic thing about conducting where you're moving your body and you're communicating to people without having to speak. Really, I think appealed to me for some reason or another. But anyway, I added music as my second major and went on from there. I practiced. I wasn't really a pianist growing up, but a little bit, and I knew how to play. But I would just go like at 8, to probably like 10 at night in one of our classrooms, and they had just stacks and stacks of old music, and I would just open one up, try and sight read the best I could through it, do it the next one, do that for a couple of hours, and then that's how I spent a lot of my nights, because I didn't really socialize too much. I probably should have. But yeah, that was so much fun to me. It's just like at first pretending to be a pianist and like, oh, I see this person doing this and I really admire them and I see what they're doing and they're really good at it. Like, let me just like pretend to do that in my little safe space here. And then the more you pretend to do something, you're like, oh, wait, I'm doing it right now. Yeah. Like I can actually do this. And yeah, it just went on from there, and conducting lessons were so much fun. Taking a look at a score and really analyzing it from like the top down and from left to right, and seeing all of the things that you can do to it, and how do I get from this piece of paper to a final performance where all of these people are coming together to do one thing, and that's to make beautiful sound and bring this text to life. And just like the project manager in me loves seeing the 30,000 foot view of point A to point B, and then going to street level view on each of those things to be like, okay, today, how are we getting this dot to this dot? And then that dot connects to this dot. And then it's just like this road that goes to the performance. And it's really like intellectually stimulating. And that's, I think, what I love the most about it.
Do you remember when you were a kid, like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, would you ever be in your bedroom pretending to conduct
I'm sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no way you didn't. And that had to have happened at least one time, if not many more.
Yeah, my mom, would sing in church choir, and I would, be there at church and just like listening to the music, and those are some like really core memories for me. And I did like children's choir, and she would be directing, and I would see all these other people, like my high school choir director in middle school, and just admiring what they're doing. but never really thinking, oh, I can do that one day until, like I said, like you pretend to do something long enough, like eventually you're going to be doing it. And that's, I think, how I got into a lot of things.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a fun way to like discover something.
When I was growing up, I've never said, you're going to be the first human to know this about me. No one on this planet knows that this.
I feel so lucky right now.
So it's not that great of a story.
Okay.
No, my 8th grade year, my friend Catherine introduced me to Michael Bublé.
Ooh.
She had just got a CD, and she played me his song "Feeling Good," or not his song, but his rendition of his song.
It's great.
And I thought the whole album was just so good. And so whenever my family was going to go to the grocery store or something, we would usually all go together. And I'd be like, hey, could I just like hang back and stay at the house? And I never usually asked that. And they were like, well, are you going to be okay? And, you know, I was little. And like, what if you get broken hands? Like, I'll call 911. Just go. And so they would leave me. And I would turn on this Michael Bublé CD. And we also had like this, I threw a Halloween party every year. And I had these like sort of disco lights. I'd run to my room, get the lights out, turn them on, turn all the other lights off, and I would turn on Feeling Good. And I was holding something too. I had like a coffee mug or something that was emulating a mic, and I'd be standing in the middle of our family room, and I would just belt that song out all the way through and just pretend like I was Michael, and there are thousands of people watching and cheering, and dude, it was so much fun.
That sounds, there's a diva in all of us. Let me tell you. Okay, I'm going to now, since you shared with me, I'm going to share with you how my mom didn't know I was gay. I don't know. Maybe she did. We haven't really talked about it. But I would like try on her like nightgowns and stuff and put on like shows for them. It was like a comedy show, but I don't know. It's just like, me putting on a little performance.
What would you joke about?
I don't remember. I just was like being silly, and like I would try to get them to laugh, and sometimes it worked. Most of the time they enjoyed it.
That's epic.
Yeah.
And that's funny too that they were never like, did you want to try on dad's suit for tonight's performance, or it was always mom's nightgown?
Yeah, they're flowy. Yeah, it's great.
Was your mom surprised? How did you come out to your mom?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so like I said, we would travel internationally with choir a good bit when I was in college, in grad school, and this was my senior year after I had graduated. We were in Germany, and it was Mother's Day. I, at the time, was dealing with some things with a gentleman, that was also in the choir. And we were friends.
Dealing with things.
Yes.
I like how you said that.
Yeah, it sounds like a Michael Bublé song, actually, Dealing with Things. Anyway, I was heartbroken, at the time. And my mom could tell, and I was being super quiet with him. And we were just going, to lunch together. And she just, asked me, like, what's wrong? And, like, I just kept trying to avoid the subject and stuff. And then she just, like, asked me, is your heart broken? And the tears just, like, came down my face, and then she started crying, and my dad was there. He's just quiet because, we're both not like super emotional people. But I was like, yeah. And it's, it's this person. And, that's how they found out. And it was a very tender moment. And I'm glad that it happened that way, because I think that like they saw me maybe for the first time, in my emotions, like who I really was. And you don't get to experience that with people a lot of the times, whenever they're in their truest state, without any, masks or force fields up. So I'm very thankful that it happened, and it happened in that way too, because, even though pain sucks, and heartbreak sucks, it's like, it's an emotion, and to have someone else there to like be with you and hold that with you in that moment, is good. Yeah.
I like how you summed that up. It is good. Yeah.
Sometimes the simplest words.
I love that for you, and I'm glad that you're happy with how everything went down.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, it could have happened in many worse ways.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if I've said this on here, but I got blackout drunk and told my mom. That's not what I intended to do.
Wow.
We had a family gathering at her place. It was someone's birthday. It wasn't Christmas. I'm pretty sure it was someone's birthday or something. But yeah, man, that's probably one of my biggest regrets in life is that I didn't get to share that moment and see her reaction in real time. And so 2 or 3 years later, I asked her if we could have coffee one-on-one, and I apologized to her and told her that, I wanted sort of what I just told you.
Yeah.
And I just said, we've never really addressed this. All my siblings told me the next day I came out, and you and me have sort of known, and then ever since then, there's sort of just been this elephant in the room, not an elephant in the room, but like, I just want us to be able to talk about it, because you've never asked me like, who are you dating, or how's things going in that department? But like, I don't know. I felt like maybe even though she knew, she was almost like waiting for it to happen again. And she was so kind in that moment, and she is like, honestly, if I was you, knowing how me and your dad raised you and how we taught you that specifically was wrong and it was a sin and it could send you to hell, like, I don't blame you. I don't know how you could have done that sober. And it was like, what more kind thing could she have said in that moment? I was like, wow, that's really gracious of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Oh.
yeah, it was good.
That see, look, it works. Wow, my mom has never seen me blackout drunk, and I'm thankful for this. Although maybe we need to have like a bonding moment where, where we go and drink,
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, drink or 2 or 3,
okay,
but
just not excessive. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't get blackout drunk in front of mom. As someone who's been there, fortunately, I didn't like break anything or puke or anything like that. I don't remember. And then apparently, I like just excused myself off to bed.
Like nothing ever happened.
I'm gay. Good night. I guess it could have been a lot worse if there had been like tears or confessions
or vomit.
Yeah. Woo. All right, no, I've never puked at mom's. Thank God. So, when you were talking about conducting, hamstring cramp.
Oh no,
sorry,
that's the worst.
When you were talking about conducting, I'd found one post where you're an instructor, a mentor, someone that you looked up to, was teaching you, giving you some tips.
Yes.
And then you get up to conduct.
Yeah.
And as you are conducting, you add in a bunch of captions of like, this was a point where I was the most anxious.
Yeah.
And do you know which post
I know
I'm talking
exactly.
about?
This is with André Thomas, fantastic conductor, super generous human being. I was in a master class with him and conducting, I think it was Ride on King Jesus, Moses Hogan's.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And that, it seems like, for the musicians listening, it seems like a super simple song to conduct, but you have to like embody something, at least I do, something that is more uncomfortable than other things that I've conducted before. And you have like Andre Thomas, who is, just super experienced and has been doing this for many, many years. Right there, standing beside you, your brain's like wondering and like thinking about what he's thinking, and then what the choir is thinking, what the pianist is thinking, and then like what I'm doing, and your brain is being split into all these different, attention areas.
Yeah.
And you still have to try and like take on board what he's telling you to do. And he's someone who he will grab your arm and like move you the way that he knows that you need to move. So a lot of growth in that time, but it was super fun. Yeah, that was such a good experience. And I think, it's just music. That's why I love music so much, and conducting in particular, because you have so many opportunities to be uncomfortable and then work past that, and then hopefully come to a better version of what you had before.
Yeah. My biggest takeaway, I've never thought about being a conductor.
Yeah.
And I love getting to talk to individuals like yourself because it gives me a new perspective on things. And one of the things you mentioned in that post specifically is how can I communicate and connect as much as I can with 40 strangers without using any words, like you mentioned a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're getting better at that?
I am, and probably the biggest lesson that I'm still working on, because is I just have to like get over myself, and like that's the biggest lesson right there. When you do these master classes and things like this, you basically walk on stage. You haven't worked with this choir before, and then you just conduct the piece, and then the person will break you down and like say, these are all the things that you need to work on, and it's just a super condensed, a lot of information at one time, sort of deal. So it's a lot of opportunity for growth, but it's a lot of stimulus at one time. But yeah, it's something that I'm trying to work on more and more. Conductors, by nature, if I can wave my arms and like do what I do without having to talk, that probably means I'm doing my job the best. But really, the job of a conductor is a connector. I have to, one, connect with the singers or the orchestra or whoever. I have to get them to connect with each other. And that can be, as few as like 8 or 16 singers, but as many as 200 singers, at one time, or an orchestra. I have to connect with my pianist if I'm working with that. And then we also have to connect, and this is what I think gets lost a lot of the times, is with the people behind us, the audience. There's a lot of facilitating that needs to happen, under my watch. And I just need to make sure that I am not taking up the most energy in the room and the most like breathing space. It really has to be about what's going on with everybody else, and how am I concisely and just concretely telegraphing what needs to happen for however long, the rehearsal or whatever it is. And it's a tough job, but the more I do it, the more I learn about myself, the more I become confident with who I am. That means that I'm going to be a better musician and a better conductor, because people can read, insincerity and all those other things pretty quickly.
So it's funny you just touched on that, on not sucking the energy out of the room, because one compliment I wanted to pay you is that since I've known you, which has been a full hour now, you seem very humble. You don't. I feel like ego-driven people, you can catch on to that pretty quick when someone brings a lot of pride to the table or whatnot. And what's interesting about you seeming to be a humble person is that a lot of what you do is quite literally on stage, whether you are the conductor leading the choir, or even if you are one of the singers that is performing, or you are the person playing the organ or the piano, that you are sort of that front guy in a sense. So how do you keep that in check? How do you stay humble as you're also in these very forward facing positions?
Well, I appreciate the compliment, so thank you.
Sure.
I think it's about realizing that I am not the best, and there's so much that I don't know, and I just really view every situation that I'm in musically as an opportunity to learn something new, and that's never going to stop, right? Even if I'm the most experienced person on the planet, there's always going to be things that I can learn. And I think when you're in that mindset, it's more difficult to sort of be arrogant and put on airs and be this conductor person, because it's just and after you teach high school and you like go through the all that this is a painful process and do those things, you lose that really quickly, because you realize my students will super quickly tell me that I'm an idiot and, call me out on, everything. Same thing with like, adult singers as well. You can't get away with much whenever you're that visible. So I think that's what keeps people in check the most. Yeah.
And thank you again for being here today.
Yeah.
There's this kid at my gym who's I may have never asked him directly his age, but he's a senior in high school. He's either 17 or 18 years old. He actually has a play whose opening night is this Thursday. So by the time this episode releases, I won't bother promoting it because the play will be well over by the time this episode drops. But you remind me of him and him of you, because he's bi and he is a theater kid. He mainly dances and he sings. I'm going to go watch him this Thursday. I can't wait to see what he's doing at whatever age he is. But he also has just had a lot of turmoil in his high school years.
Yeah.
And dude, it's for kids like him that I sort of create this show, so that, you know, maybe not him specifically, but we have no idea what teenager may watch this episode, and as they listen to the first 58 minutes, you know, relate to who you are, and then hear your voice and see where you've come. And I just hope that this show and stories like yours can be sort of a candle in the darkness for people like my buddy that I just described. So thank you so much. We're not,
for sure,
by any means, we're not ending the episode or anything, but I really appreciate you being here tonight.
I think when we realize that people are watching, and like what we say, our voice matters, in so many contexts and in so many places. You just have to know that what you say, you know, makes a difference. And yeah, like you were saying, you never know who's listening or who you can inspire or let know it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I try and have that, and I often fail, you know, of portraying my best self, and of doing those things. But I think when we think about that a little bit, it hopefully makes the world a better place.
It's good.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about a couple of your performances.
Okay.
There is one that sort of made me chuckle, because one of my guilty pleasures is that I probably watch Titanic once a year.
Okay.
Give or take. It's
Yeah.
not like on December 1st every year, but about once every 12 to 18 months, I'm firing up Titanic and watching that ship go down. And I just love the whole movie, you know, the love story that they portrayed, and then the sinking of the ship, and that whole second half of the movie is very fun to me. But you got to play a 70-year-old man who sunk on the Titanic.
Yeah.
Was that what about when was that role? Was that recently? Was that super long ago?
That was actually when I was teaching. Yeah. One of my coworkers was conducting and, you know, music directing for the musical Titanic. And yeah, I had to play Isidor Strauss, who is this 7-year-old married, you know, guy who, you know, dies on that Titanic. But he and his wife have this like duet, this like love song. Yeah, it's weird being, how old was I? Like maybe 24? Being a 24-year-old playing a 7-year-old person.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that happens. And I was in a production of Urinetown, great musical, in college, and I played this old like senator. His name was Senator Phipp. So I seemed to a lot of bass, like baritone roles are like for older people. That's just how it goes, I guess. Yeah, it's good fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's another one I wanted to ask you about. Is that you were involved in Considering Matthew Shepard in Atlanta, Georgia in 2021, and made a note that was one of the most emotional performances, and for good reason. And I had never heard of the show, and I wasn't sure if you were talking about it was emotional because it was a hard production to put on, or if it was emotional because of the nature of the show. So I just Googled it. And what I found, and for the audience as well, in case you do not know this one, what I found is that Considering Matthew Shepard is an emotional journey honoring the life and legacy of Matthew Shepard, a young gay man who was abducted, assaulted, and left for dead outside of Laramie, Wyoming in 1998. Shepard's death sparked national outrage and brought attention to hate crimes against LGBTQ plus individuals. Did you know who Matthew Shepard was before your involvement with the play, or was that sort of your introduction to his story?
So this is a piece by Craig Hella Johnson, who actually is an Austin-based composer and conductor. He conducts Conspirare, which, you know, originated this big piece. It's a multi-movement. It's, you know, almost like a passion, which, you know, mirrors other musical genres, but sort of brings it into new light with different genres and different texts pulled into it. I did not know Matthew's story before then, and before this Atlanta performance, I also did it at LSU when I was in grad school, and that's the first time I had sung it, and both times equally as emotional, equally as just riveting, and it pulls your whole soul, you know, into it. Because if you don't know Matthew's story, you know, look it up and you know, take a look into it. And this work I was doing with, you know, 30, 40 other people. We would rehearse, but nothing kind of prepares you for actually sharing that with an audience. I talked about a conductor is a facilitator of communication between, the singers and with the instrumentalists and also with the audience. And that was the first time that I really, really felt connected with the audience in a really big sense.
Those are also for you, by the way, if you do need some water at any point during this. I had on like October 30th, I remember because I was planning on going out for Halloween. I hadn't seen downtown Austin yet, and I was like, I really need to get out there, mingle with some other like-minded people at the gay bars, maybe even get myself a date or something, see where it goes. And I got sick, and it lasted like the main sickness lasted like 3 or 4 days. Got over that pretty quick, but then I had this lingering itch in my throat for about 2.5 months. And when you spend all day recruiting and then all night podcasting, I gotta tell you, that itch is a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
And I almost wasn't sure. I was like, do I just need to take like 2 weeks off from everything? Is that why it's not going away? Is because I'm just continually using my voice over and over, so I'm not giving it that room to heal. It's 95% gone at this point, but it's still there a little bit. Yeah.
Hope that clears up.
It's real fun. Yeah. You were saying.
Yes.
About connecting with the audience and Matthew's story.
And so if you have a chance to hear this performance, definitely take it, because at the end of it, this was the first time the last down cutoff, came, the music stopped, and the audience was completely silent for at least 2 full minutes. And if, you're not used to tracking seconds, when you're in performance, like 2 minutes is a very, very long time, but you could just feel the collective breath in the room, as people just stayed with the moment and what they just experienced. This piece takes you. It's not, it tells the story of what happened to Matthew, but it also shares with you who Matthew was, who his family was, the things that he wanted to be. Has entries from his diary that you get to hear, and it just is a piece about connection, what it means to be human, what it means to say I'm sorry, and what it means to give forgiveness and experience that. So they were just quiet for 2 minutes, and then that's, I think, what was the most emotional point of the whole thing for me, was that ending, because it's so rare in performances. We never ever just get quiet and togetherness like that. So.
Yeah, when I'm watching Shrek the Musical this weekend, I don't think that's going to happen. There's not going to be any 2-minute silences.
When Donkey gets shunned.
When Lord Farquaad gives his, whatever.
I really want to play Lord Farquaad, because you get to have the little shoes and everything, and walk around your knees. That'd be so much fun.
If you ever get a role as Lord Farquaad, I'm there.
Okay, good.
With some,
I'm there too.
Yes, you will be. And I'll bring some gumbo with me, or what? Not a shrimp. What's the animal I'm forgetting?
Crawfish.
Thank you, a crawfish boil. Yeah.
Just spread it out.
Yeah.
Great.
So we talked about Titanic and Matthew. I wanted to ask you any performance that was just hands down your favorite for one reason or another, whether you were conducting it, singing in it, playing an instrument in it, or did they all sort of have a unique speciality to them? Speciality?
That's a great word. Just making up words here.
It's the word now.
It's the word now, yeah. All words are made up.
Yep.
So one, I'll give you two. One, conducting, I think my first UIL, which UIL is our sort of like Texas state assessment for music and other things as well. But you go with your students and your choirs and you perform 3 pieces and they sight read and all of this stuff. And just like having taught for that year and be on the stage and like, okay, this is what this sort of year has kind of led up to. And just seeing all their faces and like, we're going to do this together. And like having high school students who can be super stupid and super just like, I don't care about anything, all those other things that we think. The amount of care that they put into what they were doing, into each other, and it's almost like, how special is that? And like, how lucky am I to be here with them right now, and performing and just getting to do that with them was really one of the most super special time for me as a conductor. My favorite performance singing, I tend to approach music from more of an intellectual point of view, where a lot of musicians are like more like feeling an emotional connection to it. I don't have that as much, which I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm missing out. But Joby Talbot's Path of Miracles was probably like just the best performance. It takes you through the Path of Miracles, the Camino de Santiago, which is, in Spain and France. And it's this ancient route that pilgrims have taken and people still take to this day. And I'm a huge hiker, and I love doing all those things. And it takes you 4 movements through 4 cathedrals along the way. And each movement is this representation of the space. And it takes texts from Latin and German and French and English and all these different languages. And you just go on this journey of walking the way, and just stunning writing. Huge fan. Would perform it any day of the week. And I get to sing super low notes in it, which is cool. So yeah, that's all fun.
I can tell you love it, because you, ever since we've transitioned and sort of into music and post college, you've been smiling ear to ear this entire time.
I love it. If you get me start talking about music, it's a great time. Yeah, I love it.
So now on the opposite side of things, was there any performance that was particularly difficult?
Oh, let's see. Difficult.
And this could be a ton of things, right? It could have been we were traveling to Italy and you were just jet lagged and having to get up on stage and perform when you're dead tired, or maybe it was a hard team that you had to work with, or maybe, you could take this in so many different directions.
Yeah. Hard for me. Okay. So as a teacher, and if you're a music educator watching this, you can probably relate, but I'm not a dancer. Unless someone is like really showing me what to do and I have plenty of time to practice, and is, that's the way. One of my classes that I had to teach was show choir, which is a group of, high school students singing and dancing at the same time. So I had to teach that class not having any kind of choreography background. But you know what? I was told, I have to make it work. And so we did. But that whole year was so hard for me, just because I always felt like I was like coming up short, and not doing service to the kids. But we made it through. My favorite dance or like song that we did was Britney Spears' "Toxic," and they danced to that and sung it, and they did really good. And you know what? For not being a dancer, I was like, we can put a little bow on that class and call it a day, and it's a good experience to have, but I will not be teaching choreography anytime soon.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Because you know what lanes to stay in.
I know what lanes, yeah.
Yep.
Cones, there are barriers. There's like, do not cross the double white line, staying in my lane.
Would you hand me one of those waters,
yes,
please? And then, there's this phrase, to never meet your heroes. But I have a feeling, based off of what I know about you, you've probably met a few of yours, or at least people you admire very much. Is there anyone in particular that you were just like, oh my God, I'm being mentored by this person, or I get to meet this person, even if it's only for like a quick 60 seconds? Anyone just pop up into mind?
So one of my favorite, this is a total brag moment, and I'm sorry I'm doing it, but it's okay. Kristen Chenoweth was doing a tour, and she was coming through Baton Rouge. And if you don't know who she is, you should look her up. She's a Broadway singer, actress, just like fantastic human being. She's short and full of energy. But anyway, she was coming through, and there are 2 songs at the end that they need like singers for, and so they contacted the Graduate School of Music at LSU, and like, oh, we need these singers, and so like we're all like, me, yep. I want to do it. So like there are a few of us, and like we had to memorize the music super quick, and just like show up. You go there, you run it with the orchestra a couple of times, and like if you don't have anything memorized, you get yelled at. But just like getting to meet her was super cool, because she was the originating role of Glinda on Wicked. which is like a super cool musical. And just getting to meet her and just like walking out onto that stage where the auditorium was absolutely packed. And these are all like Baton Rouge people mostly, and they like announced us as like LSU singers. And so if you know like anything about like LSU or like any really college town, like they go like bananas if you just like mention the school name. It's like when they found out we were from LSU, they're like, yeah, like they're like most applause and the screaming that I've ever gotten as a musician. Felt super cool. But yeah, we did that. We performed, and I was super nervous. That's probably one of the most nervous times I've been. But in between the two songs when we went off stage with her, she just like took us into this close circle and was like, "Take this moment in. Like this is like you're not going to always be able to like experience this." And I was like, "Yeah, Kristen. Yeah, I'm going to take it in." And then we went on and sung, and like she walked by me with like she was singing her solo part of it, and she just like stood by me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's you!" Yeah, starstruck. It was great. Yep, fun.
Dude, you just the way you continually light up more and more as you talk about this it's so fun to watch.
I guess that means like I'm doing the right thing with my life, hopefully.
If there's anyone, let's say someone who's still alive, if you could meet anyone or mentor under anyone or share the stage with anyone, who would be like your like the top goal, the biggest fish?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm an organist too, and one of my favorite organists, her name is Anna Lapwood, and she's based in the UK. She's also a conductor and a singer and just a fantastic musician. And she's super big like on TikTok because one day her students were like, "Oh, you should start TikTok," and now she has like millions of followers and has like performed with these like rock bands and stuff on the organ, which is great. And she's just like bringing organ out and like making it shown to a much wider audience than it is before. And so if I could like just work with her and talk with her about her path and like study with her, just have fun, that would be awesome. Yeah.
You think it might happen?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Crazier things have happened.
I'm glad that you said who knows and not like no way, that's too
look, if you want to make something happen, yeah.
Don't shut yourself off to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to ask around music is that I also didn't realize that when you're playing the organ, your feet are doing stuff too.
Yes, they are. Yes. So we actually have, so there's the pedal board down there. So you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, and sometimes more keyboards that your hands are like doing different things with. And then you have the pedal board with your feet. And we have these special organ shoes that have this like felt bottom on the bottom, which helps your feet slide a little bit easier. They're a narrower shoe, so you can, actuate your pedals more precisely. And then there's a little bit of a heel because sometimes we'll have to play 2 notes with 1 foot at the same time, or cross over heel toe, do things like that to have good technique. So yeah, you use your feet, and then you have what we call toe studs on the bottom, and you have pedals. It looks like a rocket ship. If you've never like seen an organ or played one, it's a lot of fun. But there's a lot of buttons and things you have to do, which is it's like a dance that's orchestrated, and you have to like come up with like a ballet for this piece that you're playing, and it's a lot of fun.
Was it hard to learn? Specifically the balancing the feet and the hands both doing something at the same time.
Yeah, you just start off really slowly. I had not heard an organ before I started college, actually.
Had not even heard one.
No.
On like a piece of music or...
Maybe I like heard it, but not like in person for sure, because the church I went to didn't have, an organ or anything like that. And I was a staff singer at this church in Shreveport, and just ginormous organ there. And the organist was great, and just you're consumed. You feel the organ in your body, and it's just the best thing. It's like what people experience, at like rock concerts or like EDM stuff. It's that same sort of feeling. And I was like, oh man, I have to learn how to do this. And so I just started learning, and I took applied lessons, and I watched like master classes on YouTube, and just tried to do as much as I can. And really, with anything, you just have to do a little bit every day, and then it starts getting easier. And like I was talking about before, you pretend to be something, you pretend to do something long enough, eventually you're going to be doing it. And so that's kind of where I found myself, with that.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think about the word manifestation? Is that like a little bit too woo woo for you, or do you more like to stick with the wording that you just used of
I will probably stick with the wording that I used just because like manifest, just like manifest that girl, no. If the word works for you, use it, manifest it, do it. It's great. I'm just like, no, what words you're using and why and like the meaning behind them. That's, if you know that vocabulary, like use whatever word you want to use. Go ahead. Eat your heart out.
Eat your heart out.
Just go. Do you use manifest?
Not really.
Okay.
I conceptually, so the way I sort of see it is I thought about starting a podcast and moving to Austin for a while.
Okay.
And I'd never said it out loud. And then one day, it was in the middle of July of 2022, and my ex coworker Norbert, he asked me, he was like, "So what's new with you? What are you going to change?" Or he asked something very. It wasn't "How are you?" It was like, and it wasn't New Year's, so it wasn't like, "Oh, do you have any resolutions?" Like he asked me like, "What are you doing? What are you doing with your life, David?" It wasn't that like negative either. Anyways, I said, "I'm going to move to Austin and start a podcast." And I almost was like, "Oh, fuck. Why did I just say that out loud?" And he's like, "Austin, Texas." And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "And you're going to start a podcast?" I was like, "Right on. Yep." And so then over the next like 3 months, I would say it as much as I could. Anytime anyone asked me some sort of question where I could answer like, "Oh, what's new with you, David?" "Oh, I'm moving to Austin, starting a podcast." And so then fast forward to the morning, 5 a.m. on December 26th of 2022, and I had sold or given away or thrown out everything I owned, and me and Thad were jumping in the car and driving to Austin.
Wow.
So no, I don't often. I'm not. If you go thumb through my Instagram, you're not going to see me manifest it. No. I'm not that guy. But I do.
That's
think
what you did. You manifested it.
I did.
You spoke it into existence.
I spoke it into existence. Well, it was almost like I was creating all these little promises to myself by telling someone else, and then it was like, well, if I don't do this, I just lied to 30 people. But those 30 people almost don't matter. It's more of I lied to myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. So I kept my promise. And here we are. How did CrossFit come into your life?
Okay. That's a long story, but it's a good story, and I'm just super thankful that it has. I said that I was a competitive swimmer all my life. I was like a pretty average athlete. A lot of that came from just like lack of confidence and just not writing my own story and all that. But I moved to Baton Rouge because I was planning to go to LSU, for grad school. And I was like, well, what am I going to do now that I've stopped swimming and I just need to find something else? And so I had heard about CrossFit, but like everyone like shits on CrossFit, all the time.
Including me.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I feel free. But I think maybe I'll just try it. And so I went and I did my like foundations courses, had a good time. My first workout, I died and I went back to my car to like drive home, and I just sat in my driver's seat and I could not like even lift my hands to my steering wheel to drive. And so I just like reclined my seat back. I fell asleep and just like took a nap there, and then eventually made my way home, and I was hooked after that. Which probably tells you more about me than anything else, but yeah.
That's awesome. I can say I've never worked out so intensely that I had to take a nap before driving home.
It was an out of body experience. Yeah, it was great. And ever since then, it's been so that was like in 2015 maybe. So I've been doing it quite a long time, but only in the past couple of years have I really told myself you can really do this, and you can make this a bigger part of your life, and like you can have goals and you can set them, and you can tell yourself what you want to do. Because before then I didn't. I was always like following some path that I thought I was supposed to do. So there was like a big change and a big confidence change once I started really digging into it. And it turns out that I love Olympic lifting. There's always something to work on with it. There's always some like little tiny movement thing that you can adjust, that you need to adjust in order to like achieve a good lift. Like I said, I'm a more intellectual person, and that really feeds like the intellectual side of me. I'm not going to work out really to like disconnect or, you know, just like go through the motions. Like I want to be there to be better than I was the day before and to like achieve something better. And that's, I think, what CrossFit gives me. Yeah.
Did you, at the early stages, before you were as deep into it as you are now, did you ever try, just out of curiosity, working out at like a quote unquote traditional gym like an LA Fitness or a Gold's or something? And what'd you think?
I didn't know what to do with myself. I was just like going there and I was like, people just like come here and they move. I found that I like like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, there's all these people. But it turns out that like I need that like social aspect of, I'm in a class with like, you know, 12 other people, and I've developed so many like deep, good friendships through CrossFit. And like having a coach there that has, you know, we have our programming, and I can see like the progression of, we're working on this and it's going to affect, you know, this later on, and having the cues that they give you. And they also keep you like honest with yourself and motivate you to, you know, work and get better, you know, than you were before. And they like come to know you as an athlete, and as a person, and they sort of like know how to like prod you and like push you to do more and, you know, get better.
Did you just call yourself an athlete?
Yes, I did.
Fuck yeah.
I am an athlete. You are an athlete.
Yes, I am. Do you happen to go to CrossFit Lake Travis?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
I only asked because I had the owners on of that box, and I thought, what a small world if I had reached out to them and reached out to you, and then coincidentally you both sat in that seat.
That would be really coincidental.
Do you want to shout out where you go or no?
I do.
Do. Which box is it?
I go to Renew Fitness. It's North Austin.
Okay.
CrossFit Renew. I've been to a lot of different CrossFit gyms and like dropped in and like been home at a lot of gyms, but this one is probably the most I felt a part of a community, and it's probably why I've progressed a lot, is because I don't know, I feel like I would let people that I really care about down if like I stopped going, or if I didn't care about myself enough to like put in the effort for that day, or, you know, something like that. And just the coaches there have the best experience and the best, you know, mindset and care for, you know, for their athletes. So it's been really great so far. Love my people there. Yeah, it's great.
It's funny because I do go to Gold's, and I am one of those people that can just show up and move. And
how do you do this?
I love it, dude. Like today, I show up and I put my headphones on, and I sort of had the thought of like, you know, my last couple chest workouts are pretty similar, so how can we switch it up today? And then I choose what music. Well, today I listened to a podcast because I have to do that to get in the mindset to podcast. And so I'm listening to this podcast, and I decide first I'm going to do flies, and it's my warm-up sets. So I have like 4 or 5 warm-up sets just to get the blood flowing and start getting the body temperature to rise. And then I go do usually my hardest movement is my second one, because I'm still sort of fresh, but I'm also warmed up. And I'm just telling myself, I'm thinking about form and making sure that I'm not cheating myself and I'm going low enough on my reps, and I'm thinking about you and what questions I'm going to ask you and where the conversation might go. And it's my happy place. And then I'm in this rhythm of like halfway through the workout, I'm sweating and I feel a nice pump, and I'm like jotting down notes on my phone because I forgot to bring my physical notes with me. And then I leave and I just feel fucking great. I feel ready.
Yeah.
Like Andre can come over now. I'm ready for him.
I tend to work out in the morning now, and I love it because my day's like started and I've like accomplished something, and I'm just so energized, you know, for the rest of the day. It's great.
What now? When you say morning, what time do you mean? You know, like
6:45. No, I'm not one of them. I know.
Okay.
It's not bad. But when I taught, I was going to like the 5:30 a.m. class, and that was a little too much for me.
Yeah, the owners of CrossFit Lake Travis, I think they said they get their workout in at 4. because the first class is at 5:15 or something, so they have to
That's
have their
insanity.
workout done before the people arrive.
That's a bit much, I think. Okay, when people say like CrossFit is a cult, like that's probably a little bit more down that road.
What was it like? Who are Alex Smith and Riley Joe?
Oh.
That's not the reaction I was expecting, but I'm so glad that's the reaction we got.
They're like my CrossFit crushes. Alex Smith, yeah, he's just a great athlete, and like he seems really nice. I've never like met him except for that picture that was at the Invitational, and me and my friend were like, "Oh, is that them?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so we just went up and like asked for a picture, and so he and his maybe boyfriend, fiance. I like put my arms around them to take the picture, and like felt like boulders back there, like so muscular. I was like, oh my goodness, yeah. No, but he's probably like one of the first CrossFit, and he's out, and you know, and I think a really good voice in CrossFit for like that LGBT, you know, sort of corner of it, because I think that there's not a lot of visibility in CrossFit for that, just because of the nature of it. So he was one of the early people that I started to follow and just like see how he did things. And he's just like, you know, inspired me to get better and keep going with CrossFit. Yeah.
Did you, so at the time the picture was taken, did you know he was out?
Yeah.
Did you know if he had a boyfriend or not?
Yeah, I did. And
He did have a boyfriend?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Riley,
I was going to ask you if you asked him out, but
No,
that would have been inappropriate.
that would have been inappropriate. Yeah, but we can still be friends.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What did you mean by how the LGBT space doesn't have a lot of visibility in the CrossFit world due to the nature of it?
I feel so. Okay, a box or like a gym, you know, is kind of like a church. Like there's so many varieties and different like atmospheres and like politics and all this stuff. It is the same thing with the CrossFit gym. I found, you know, Renew because it just felt like a safe space for me, and it felt like home. That's probably not true for every CrossFit gym that I would go to, which is why you kind of have to shop around and like people have bad experiences because they go to this one, you know, gym which doesn't really like fit with them. But you know, in general, it's just super like kind of bro-y thing to do is CrossFit. You know, have that image of, you know, shirtless guys and just like throwing weights around and stuff like that. And yeah, you don't always see yourself, you know, like as a gay man in the sport, but it's good whenever you do see those people. And they are out there, and there are boxes that are definitely like super affirming. Like in Manhattan, I follow it's called like Outfit, and they have like a bunch of cool apparel and stuff like that, and so I get stuff from them. And there's just like a really big gay presence, you know, there in New York, and so there will be boxes like that. So you just have to find your community. CrossFit is right. It's a sort of it's brand, right, and there are all these different sort of applications of it. So you have to find your people and find your community.
Yeah, I do like those shirts. There's a couple of them throughout your Instagram, and I was thinking I was going to wander onto their website. I was like, no, don't spend money that you don't need to spend right now. But maybe I will tonight.
Yeah.
And as much as I shit on CrossFit, your legs look great. So
thank you.
Like, and so my buddy Eli too, like he worked out at traditional gyms, and then he told me one day, he's like, I'm canceling my membership to go to CrossFit. I was like, dude, you're gonna get so fucking small. And then fast forward 6 months, and this guy was just built like a brick house. I'm like, you did that CrossFitting? Maybe I should join. You know? But you're right. They do a lot of marketing with jack dudes with their shirts off, and I'll be transparent and just say I know that's part of what's kept me out of it. Is even though I'm sure I'm not going to show up and people are going to be like, oh, take your shirt off, or what if all the other dudes have their shirt off and I don't want to take my shirt off, and I'm not self-conscious about what. Let me rephrase that. I'm self-conscious about my stomach. I feel pretty good about like my body, and I wear tank tops to the gym, some of which are probably a little bit more revealing than they should be. But like, I don't want to be shirtless in a gym ever. That seems terrifying to me. I'm like, no way, Jose.
David, you've got it going on. Don't worry. Look, and people love a good muscly man to hunker down with. It's a thing.
I do know this.
Yes. Yeah. So whatever you do with confidence, and I've had to learn to do that, because I was 150 all throughout college in swimming, because I was working out twice a day in swimming, however many meters, and just not gaining muscle. And then I started CrossFit and just started seeing those changes in my body, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I love me squats.
Squats are fun.
Yes, they are.
People who don't like squats, I don't understand it.
I squatted this morning.
There you go. How much?
So we did sets of 3 up to a 3-rep max, and I got my back squat up to 315 this morning.
Jesus, well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to scream to get the last one.
Sometimes you gotta scream.
Up there. Yeah, it was a moment.
I have a funny story for you. I went to Planet Fitness for the first time. My buddy goes to one, and I've been trying to work out with him, and he finally conceded. Was like, I will lift with you if you come to my gym.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I know nothing about this place. So we walk in, got my day pass. We're starting to work out, and I noticed that they have the lunk alarm on the wall. Do you know what I speak of?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so there's this alarm on the wall, and then right underneath it, in big letters. Oh, and also, let me preface this by saying, when we were walking up to the gym, in the front lobby, there's all this marketing everywhere about how this is the no judgment zone. And when I was online getting my guest pass, no judgment zone, I'm like, this place sounds pretty cool. All right, no judgment. So we're in the middle of the workout floor, and it's the lunk alarm, and it says this is for people who are wearing athletic tank tops or are grunting really loudly or da-da-da-da-da-da. And they have 5 things about what makes a lunk a lunk. And so I had my t-shirt on, but I had my tank top on underneath, and I asked him, I was like, Tommy, if I take my shirt off, are they going to turn off? Is that alarm going to go off? And he's like, no, I think you'll be fine. I see dudes with their with their athletic tanks on all the time. And I'm like, all right, cool. So 20 minutes later, I take my shirt off. I'm doing my set. He's doing his set. And all of a sudden, I start hearing a meh, meh, meh. And I look up, and the alarm's going off. I'm like, my God, I wonder who it is. And so then I'm looking around, and the front desk was directly behind me. And I do a full 360 of the room. And the front desk guy, with just a blank look on his face, is staring right at me and going like this.
Oh, no. And you felt judged.
Yeah,
did you not?
Hell yeah, I did.
No judgment zone.
That's what I was you guys are liars. So I was like, oh, and I put my t-shirt back on, and I put it on, and then I look over, and he presses a button on the front desk, and the alarm stops going off. I'm like, this is I would go back, but imagine if you were new to lifting and extremely self-conscious, or just I'm like, this place is awful. This is
so many people get turned off to fitness and doing what they can do is because people are assholes and are poor teachers. It's the same thing with music. So many people come up to me and are like, oh yeah, I was in music in elementary and middle school, but I had this teacher that told me I couldn't sing, and they just so many stories like that. It's because the teacher didn't have the tools they needed in order to help the student succeed. And the same thing happens in fitness, and I'm just like, man, so much opportunity is missed when people don't have, either the training or the tools they need, or maybe they were having a bad day and this came off to this other person. So, yeah, no, I take my shirt off all the time when I work out, and I'm just like, let it go, be yourself, sweat it out. That's what I do.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
What's your relationship like with your Instagram account?
For me, it's a tool to keep myself aligned, and I kind of think of it as a diary or a journal, because I'll go back to posts and see the progress that I've made from point A to point B, and it's pretty cool sometimes just to see where I was. But I know if I'm filming myself when I'm lifting, I'm going to have so much better technique, and I'm going to be so much more motivated. I'm a huge show off type person. And so whenever, I'm lifting, it's just so much more motivating. It's probably why I do CrossFit, is because I know people are watching me, and my coach is watching me. All the other athletes are. So it kind of keeps me honest with myself and helps me get that extra little bit. So I think it's the same thing for my Instagram, where, kind of if I know it's going to be seen, I will just be that much more mindful about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which I don't love about myself, but I know that's how I operate. And so I'm like, well, know yourself and use that to your advantage. And so that's what it's definitely not about like gaining followers or anything. It's just more about being mindful with myself and like, what am I doing with my life? And like, this is a, sort of like board of who I am.
Yeah. I appreciate that because similar to, in that vein of things, I'm not going to change a single post from when I started my Instagram account. So I think I started it like 30 days before the podcast went live. And so there's a bunch of posts about like, today I'm sitting down with our first guest. Today the camera came in, like just leading up to the launch.
Yeah.
And when I first started, I didn't know what a vertical was. So all the posts are like, they're very cut off and they're horizontal and bad. And so after I learned what a vertical was and I started posting correctly, I was thinking like, oh, I should go delete all those. And I thought, no, because this is sort of a cool way to be able to go back and look at like how far the show has come, whether it's the quality of the guests, the quality of the equipment, whatever it may be. And so I'm leaving all of that there. Even the other day I was thinking like, should I re-upload the first 10 to 12 videos before I started making them 4K? And I thought, no, I'm just going to leave them. I want them to look sort of shitty so people can see like, it's a growing process. You don't have to be perfect from day one. And I'm not going to pretend that I was a perfect podcaster from day one. So I'm definitely still not.
Yeah.
Far from it.
Well, look, a lot of musicians don't post like their practice and sort of the more like tender moments of when they're messing up and not playing something as like a performance, because there's a lot of space in between when you start learning a piece and whenever you perform it. But maybe because I don't fully wear that musician label yet or ever, I am just like, I think it's cool to sort of show that I don't have to have a polished product like all the time. Like this is what the learning process goes through. I follow this one pianist. Her name's Tiffany Poon, and she's based in New York. Fantastic concert pianist. And she posts, YouTube vlogs and stuff like that. And she'll post her practice, just like what people might think is boring. But I look at that, and she's like explaining like all of the things, like why is she doing this? Why is she like stopping there? Why is she going back? How is she interpreting that little passage? And it's so cool to like see the process, like the building process. And so that's what I hope I can do too, is like show the building process of how it works to become proficient, like at a snatch, or things like that. Like there are like tall points of the hill and there are like low points of the hill, and like hopefully the line is going up, you know, at the end. So.
Yeah, totally. Let's talk about mindset. At what point was there any like defined point where you got into the headspace of like, I need to be seeing improvements every day, whether that's a little improvement with my singing, a little improvement with my snatch, or was it something that just sort of gradually happened over time and then you realized it one day?
Yeah, I think it's more gradual, but I think there are definitely like moments where it was just like a shift in mindset. I'm thinking probably about like when I lifted a certain amount and it was like a big milestone for me, or whenever I recorded a piece and listened to it back and I was like, wow, like I just played this and, whatever. It was, I didn't think I could. But I think it was more gradual. Getting that mindset kind of shift is an ongoing process, and it's a long process. I don't think for anyone it's like an overnight flip, switch that you flip.
Yeah. I would agree that for me it's been gradual as well. I have a few friends in AA. One of them in particular that comes to mind was at a point where he had no money to his name. He was sleeping in an alley, had no idea if he was going to die. And he did have sort of a light bulb moment of like, shit.
Look, those can hit you, and
right.
Yeah.
But so I think it's different for everyone. I'd rather take the gradual route if I'm being.
Like hopefully I never hit like a rock bottom where I'm like, oh, I've got to make a change right now.
Yeah.
But our brains are such complex things that progress and change can happen if you are in that mindset, but it requires you to sleep on it. When you're sleeping, your brain is making all these different pathways and making all these new connections. And that just has to happen over a long period of time. And that's the same with weightlifting. It's the same with music. It's the same with whatever thing you're trying to accomplish or improve or get better at. So another thing that I hope my Instagram shows is just like it's the long game of this did not happen overnight, and this is the work that goes into it. And that might intimidate some people because they're like, I want to get this now, and I don't want to have to like struggle through it. But I'm like, the joy is in those days. It's in those moments of doing the thing, being sucky at it, but knowing that tomorrow you're going to be a little bit better, and just like enjoying the physicality or the mentality of whatever it is that you're doing. I think people are too often concerned about the final product, and they don't stop to like smell the roses and like to see like what's around them. Yeah, it's like, I think the whole point of life is to go through life and to really experience those things and not really worry about what's down the road too much.
I recently discovered someone who is in the world of academia, and he studies happiness. And as someone who asks everyone, are they happy? Happiness is a really interesting concept to me. And so finding out that there's someone who's spending his life studying it, I was like, I need to dive into what this guy does. And one of the things he was talking about is a word I think you just used, which is satisfaction. Yeah. And he says satisfaction is the result of getting on the other side of struggle. And that satisfaction is one of the three key elements of happiness. And we have this thing going on in our culture right now where people may be adverse to bad things happening to them, or they may be adverse to hard work, or they may be adverse to being in that long game and being patient to develop that skill, whether it's singing, podcasting, fitness, health, whatever it may be. And then they're asking themselves, like, why am I not satisfied, or why am I not happy? But that is in and of itself the definition of happiness. Is one of the three key elements is that being satisfied. Yeah. And so one of the questions I told you about an hour ago that I was going to circle back on is, you said that I wish I had the confidence to be the man I wanted. Or you said I wish I had. And the follow-up question I wanted to ask you, thinking about this concept of satisfaction, and that you only get satisfaction by going through a hard thing. Let's say I'm actually a genie, and I can grant you that wish to give you the confidence that you wanted as that 14-year-old boy. Would you accept that wish, or knowing where your life is now, would you leave everything as is?
No, I would leave everything as is. You bring up a really good point. It's sure, if I didn't have certain things about me, my life would have been different, and maybe I would have been like more successful or happier or more satisfied. But if I'm happy now, well, that's only a result of those things that I went through. And those things that I did go through, I think, hopefully, have given me things that I really value about myself, like things like compassion and things like patience and humility and understanding, and walking in someone else's shoes and really seeing something from their perspective. That's something that I really don't take for granted, and I'm really thankful that I do have. And so you have to ask yourself, is it because of those things that you went through? Is it innate about you? And I think it's a combination of all those things. It's happiness. You have to experience, those cloudy moments in life in order to like really appreciate the sunshine. And you know what? Some people really love cloud. I love a cloudy day when it's drizzling outside. Yeah. Words are nothing, right? They're just these things floating out in space. They're just ideas. You can define a word. And so if you're thinking about the word happiness, it has no meaning until you attach it to something. And if you're attaching it to yourself, you get to say, what am I putting into this happiness box? And if you don't have much to put in there, then you can, ask yourself, what do I want to put in here? What do I want to sort of fill this space with? So that's what I love about language and words, is that they're so malleable, and they're so just illustrative of our experiences as humans and what can be accomplished in like perspectives, and they can paint things in such cool ways. And that sort of ties into like the whole, CrossFit and music thing too. So, yeah.
Yeah. May we cut for a quick moment?
Yes.
I'll be right back. Do you need to use the bathroom?
No, I'm good.
All right. Before we wrap this thing up, I do have a few more questions for you.
Okay.
Is there anything else you wanted to share tonight?
Ooh. First of all, I think everyone should find things that they're passionate about. And I was saying before, like, pretend to do something until you're actually doing it. Why not just like try and do something and find that passion in your life? Yeah, I would advocate for someone doing CrossFit or doing music or doing all these other things, but really there's so many things out there. Just find that thing that really gives you drive and gives you direction and like fills that happiness box for you. Yeah, so many things out there you can do.
It's the timing of what you brought up is funny, just because you did not know I was going to listen to the podcast that I listened to today, but they were talking about how when someone, let's say you are listening to this and you're working an 8 to 5 and you've been graduated for a few years and you're just like, is this, because that was me. That's a big part of the reason I started the podcast. It was like, am I just going to do this for the next 30 years? Really, the only thing left is finding a partner. And then after that, it's like buy a house, but like, it just seems sort of bleak. And so I sort of having sort of my own thoughts of like, what is my purpose? Why are we here and whatnot? And today, as I was listening to this podcast, they're like, that's sort of a hard task because of like, quote unquote, finding your purpose. Because if I'm your boss and I go tell you to go find me a rock, you're gonna be like, what? Have you ever heard this before?
No, I haven't.
All right,
No.
and so you go outside and you find your boss a rock, and then you bring it back to him, and he says, that's the wrong one. You're like, fuck! Like, how am I going to pass this test? And so finding your purpose can be a little bit vague. And so they gave us 2 questions, which I would like to ask you as a good starting point for thinking about your own life. Question number 1, and there's no right answer. Okay, no right answer. Why are you alive?
Oh, which route am I going to go with this answer? I'm alive because I am. That's my science brained, like philosophical answer. No, let me answer it another way. Is it a cheat to say I'm alive to find out why I'm alive? Is that what do you think about that? What answer?
Maybe not. I'm going to shoot him an email tomorrow, see if he answers it, and say, hey, is that a cheat answer?
I just feel like you can't ask those kind of questions because, I don't know. you never know the ending of a story until you read it, right? Like you can imagine all these endings and stuff, but you're never gonna know until you actually like go through the book and get to that final sentence in that last period. I don't know. I imagine I look back on my life and just be like, oh, like that's what it was. Like this is what this was about. Yeah, I guess that feeling would be like comforting and knowing and just yeah, I don't know. I don't imagine like too much fear about it. I just imagine just like, oh, a realization that you've been traveling so long and so far, wondering the answer to a question, and then you finally like get it. What, that's so great. Was that like my version of manifestation?
No. It was your answer.
That's my answer.
Yeah.
It's my life.
Are you ready for the second question?
Let's go.
For what are you willing to die for today?
Oh my gosh, these are deep questions.
Would you die for your country?
You are asking some really deep questions. I would be willing to die today. I'd like to think if I could save someone else, I would be okay with that.
Your sisters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Parents.
Yes. Someone like someone who needed my life, I think. I don't know. I don't know. This make me like.
Is it making you uncomfortable?
I think it makes me uncomfortable because, like, everyone's answer would be, of course, like I would die for someone that I love, or for these things. And then I'm just asking myself, like, do I really mean that? I guess we never know until like we're actually in that situation, and we have that question like staring us in the face. But then I'd like to think that if it really was staring me in the face, that the answer would be easy. Yeah, that sort of same calm as when I was talking about like the end point of that last period on the page and looking back and being like, oh, like this was what it's about. Maybe it's a tie into that question too. Who knows?
Who knows? What are you most excited for in 2024 that you know of now?
To be out of 2023, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, not the best year.
Oh, I feel like every year we're like, oh, dumpster fire right here. 2024 is going to bring me, I think, more grounding in who I am in like my professional life, in my personal life as well. I'm really trying to make an effort to be like more social and to make more friends, especially like here in Austin. It's a little bit hard, especially like in the gay world and stuff. Trying to make an effort to do that, own my narrative a little bit more. It's been kind of like a 3-year process of me trying to be mindful about that. So just trying to like sink into that a little bit more. Travel more too. I want to do that.
Same here. Yeah.
It'd be fun.
I got my passport last summer.
Oh, where are you going to go?
I'm thinking Africa.
What part of Africa?
I don't know.
It's pretty big.
So I have someone in California who goes to Africa for 30 days every year.
Okay.
I need to message her and say, hey, can I bend your ear? And just, can you tell me, like, as a first timer, would you suggest any particular region, city, just like give me some tips as someone who's never left the U. Well, I went to Mexico, but I feel like that's sort of a cheat answer because I lived in California. So you literally just drive for a couple hours. So like, have I left the border? Yes.
Yeah.
But not really.
Yeah.
So I want to call Crystal and see what she thinks. As a Crystal Coleman.
Let us know what you think.
She's been doing it every year for like 17 years or something wild like that. She loves Africa.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. I don't think I'll be going for 30 days.
It's a commitment.
But I'll go for 10 or something.
10, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on safari.
I heard, I won't do this because I think it's like $10,000 or something like that. But there's this one organization that will take you backpacking into a gorilla nest.
What?
So you start in the Jeep and you get like the majority of the way there, but then you have to get out of the Jeep because they don't want to disturb these gorillas in their natural environment. But for me, like, I've been to aquariums, I've been to zoos. The thought of like seeing these creatures in literally their natural environment is just like, that would be wild.
Yeah, it would be, for sure. Hopefully the gorillas don't mind.
I might die.
Let's hope that does not happen.
Yeah, I'm not.
Would you die for gorillas?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
you have your answer.
If they were going extinct, I don't know. I'd have to do some research on like what value they bring the planet.
Yeah.
Sorry, monkeys.
That's okay.
Yeah. All right. This has been fun. Thank you. Anything else that we should have talked about but didn't?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of things.
Did you have fun?
I had so much fun.
Are you glad you came?
So glad I came.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
And if you ever want to hang out, we don't have to make gumbo, but if you want to grab some food,
Let's do it.
I did actually. I lied. I have one more question for you.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
You and me have something in common, I think, where I also haven't really made any gay friends in Austin. I've been here about 13 months. Part of that is I'm a workhorse. I'm working all day. I'm working all night. I'm not about to leave like on a Monday night at whatever time it is.
Yeah.
So for me, I know it's myself just not making the time to build that community. Yeah. What do you think it's been for you?
Saying yes to things. I always get like the anxiety, this bad thing's gonna happen, or like, I don't put myself out here. But just like, and even if like the situation is horrible and like I had a bad time, like that's another like percentage point in my math of putting myself out there. Like the more times you do it, the greater probability there is that something is going to work out. So saying yes, that should be my 2024 motto. Say yes.
Yeah, manifest that.
I will manifest all damn day long. Manifest this mess.
Manifest this mess.
I'm going to get like a needlepoint thing of that saying. I should market that.
One of my friends, or one of the other guests on the podcast, put it on a business card, and it's the front.
Oh, did I not make that up? Is that a saying?
What?
Manifest this mess?
No. Not that specific word. Okay. So his is be humble, be honest.
Okay.
And he just found like a blank business card and he printed it at the top and then put it in the front pocket of his wallet. So every time he opens his wallet, there's a little reminder to.
That's handy.
It's something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine would probably be better every day.
That's better than manifest this mess.
Yeah.
Because then you're implying you're a mess. You're not a mess. Maybe you are. maybe you've just brought this facade here this evening, and everything I'm singing and conducting, and got this great deep voice and big quads, and I'm just still crying myself to sleep every night.
Aren't we all a little bit mess?
Up here? Yeah. 1,000%. I wonder if that will go away one day. I should reach out to someone old.
Yeah.
And successful. What does that even mean? I don't know. Right. I don't know. All right. Are we out of here?
We're out of here.
All right, everyone. If you have stuck with us for the last 2 hours, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I seriously mean that. Something new that I'm doing this year is instead of asking you to leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or subscribe on YouTube, which of course you're more than welcome to do so, if you listen to this entire 2 episodes, I'm assuming you liked it. So my request of you, share it with one person, whether it's someone who has a music background or maybe they're an existing CrossFitter and you think they would enjoy that portion of the conversation, or maybe someone who needs to be CrossFitting. That's mean. But whoever you think could also, a friend, a family member, a colleague that would get something out of this episode, please send them the link. Tell them to give it a listen. That's worth their time. And in the meantime, everyone, stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll see you next Saturday night. Bye, guys.